Hello there guys, and welcome to Mad Doc Minis. In this video I'm going to be converting this Reiver Lieutenant into a chaplain in Reiver armour. My wife recently bought me this as a bit of a thank you for watching the Great British Bake Off with her, which isn't my favourite show in the world, so I really appreciated that. But I already had this model. Instead of taking it back for a refund or an exchange, I just decided to go with it really, because I never would have bought a second one myself, and I decided to do something a bit different with it. So I want to make him into a chaplain. So initially I just glue the main components of the model together as is. The posing of this model is really good. It's kind of leaping up. It's quite aggressive, quite dynamic, kind of perfect for a chaplain really. So the legs, the torso go together pretty much as is. It's when I start visiting the arms where some of the conversion work for me starts to happen. That's if you can call my kind of work conversion work, frankly. Again, in the title, Mad Doc Minis, it's kind of an orky conversion, this. You could do probably a much tidier job with more patience and diligence, but that ain't me, guys. So I just kind of hack away with my clippers and kind of see what happens, really. So that's the main body that's gone together there. And here we start to examine the arms. I want to change the weapons, basically. So the heavy bolt pistol gets chopped off at the wrist first. So the hand and the pistol disappear. Clip, 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 and there we go. And that arm gets glued on. So I'm not actually going to be changing the overall pose. As I said, that's going to be kept really. So the rest of the arm gets glued on as is. There's no changes there. It just gets put into its original slot minus hand and weapon. The same thing is going to happen on the other side. So the combat blade and the hand holding it get snipped off with the modelling clippers, and then the arm gets glued back onto the torso. So basically what we end up with here is the model kind of constructed as is initially, torso and legs and arms minus hands and weapons, because that's the bit that I want to change for the chaplain conversion. I also end up putting a different head on this guy as well, just for variation, because I don't want him to have exactly the same head as my existing Reiver Lieutenant. So I just put a Reiver helmet on, because it's basically a really good looking chaplain helmet as well. But that's later on. So he goes on to the base, and here we have a pretty armless lieutenant at the moment. Har, har, har. Then we kind of examine what we've got in the bits box. And I have a spare chaplain model from the Indomitus box set. This is part of it. And I want the Absolver bolt pistol. So I kind of clip that off with the kind of wrist and hand attached. Because he's got quite a nice gauntlet attached there as well, which I kind of want to preserve. So this means a little bit more chopping with the existing arm on the Reiver. Just have to do a couple of dry fits first, a little bit of chopping on both components, and a little bit of super glue to attach it on. And you'll notice in this build there may be a little bit of inconsistency as you go along, where I've changed things along the way. That's one of the chief reasons I use super glue in a lot of my builds, because I changed my mind, and plastic cement really does what it says on the tin, and I like to kind of snap things off and start again sometimes. So that happens a lot here. Here we have the chaplain's weapon from that same kit that I said, the Indomitus chaplain. So I want to take that off again, keeping the gauntlet attached there. A little bit of a rough cut at the moment, but we tidy that up later. Takes a little bit of dry fitting, little bit of light trimming, and he goes on there. Once again, you could do a much tidier job than this. It's not in my nature to be too perfectionist about these things. But yeah, in fact, what you'll notice is that the angle of this weapon changes throughout the build, because I can't get a satisfactory angle on it until the end. The reason for that is the original posing of the Reiver Lieutenant is, the blade is in his hand, it's about to thrust forward and down into some kind of victim in front of him. And therefore the elbow is at a high angle and angled precisely for that pose. Now this made kind of, choosing the angle of the chaplain's weapon a little bit difficult. In the end, I went for a kind of like a angled up forward kind of pose, and I think that kind of looks okay, but you're going to see what I mean in the final images. So yeah, a lot of tweaking around here, a lot of messing around to try and get that right. And you can see that I started with it raised up, but it just didn't look quite right with the posing of the elbow. So I kind of like changed that at the end. It looked okay, but it just didn't look like he was going to do anything with it. It just looked like it was kind of held there a bit awkwardly. Here I changed out the backpack for the one from the Indomitus Chaplain, and I'm bending the purity seals at the back to look like they're flowing out, because it was quite a static pose on that other one. So now it gives it a bit more movement at the rear there, as you can see. It goes with the rest of the model really. So he's looking pretty good. So here you'll notice that we're getting close to the final pose here, and this kind of sheath for the combat blade isn't needed anymore because it's empty. So I don't like things like that staying on there when there's no use for them. So that clips off, and we just put in a little kind of book or tome from the normal intercessor kit. It's quite small. I would have liked a bigger one, but I just couldn't find one. So we put that little book on there with further kind of adds to the chaplain's specific equipment. A little bit of filing just to tidy it up. All pretty rough, guys. As I said, I do apologize if it offends, but that's me. Here's the little book that I end up putting on, teeny tiny, and that just glues in that little space there. Looks okay. And that's kind of the final pose. You can see that the chaplain's weapon is kind of aimed forward a little bit there. And that's it, guys. Thanks for joining me. I really enjoyed this little build, and I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I just didn't take this guy back and get something completely different, because I wouldn't have done it. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking, sharing, or subscribing. All helps, and I'll catch you in the next one on Mad Doc Minis. Thanks very much, guys.